Chapter 12. From whence evils originate, and that there is not a nature of evil. But how came evil into the world, since the gods are good and the producing causes of all things? And in the first place we ought to assert that since the gods are good and the authors of all things, there is not any nature of evil, but that it is produced by the absence of good, just as darkness is of itself nothing, but is produced by the privation of light. But if evil has any subsistence, it must necessarily subsist either in the gods, or in intellects, in souls, or in bodies. But it cannot subsist in the gods, since every god is good. And if any one should say that intellect is evil, he must at the same time assert that intellect is deprived of intellect. But if soul, he must affirm that soul is worse than body, for every body, considered according to itself, is without evil. But if they assert that evil subsists from soul and body conjoined, it will certainly be absurd that things which separately considered are not evil should become evil from their conjunction with each other. But if anyone should say that daimons are evil, we reply that if they possess their power from the gods, they will not be evil, but if from something else, then gods will not be the authors of all things, and if the gods do not produce all things, either they are willing but not able, or they are able but not willing, but neither of these can be ascribed with any propriety to a god. And from hence it is manifest that there is nothing in the world naturally evil, but about the energies of men, and of these not all, nor yet always, evil appears. Indeed, if men were guilty through evil itself, nature herself would be evil. But if he who commits adultery considers the adultery as evil, but the pleasures connected with it as good, if he who is guilty of homicide considers the slaughter as evil, but the riches resulting from the deed as good, and if he who brings destruction on his enemies considers the destruction as evil, but taking revenge on an enemy as good, and souls are by this means guilty, hence evils will be produced through goodness, just as while light is absent, darkness is produced, which at the same time has no subsistence in the nature of things. The soul, therefore, becomes guilty because it desires good, but it wanders about good, because it is not the first essence. But that it may not wander, and that when it does so, proper remedies may be applied, and it may be restored, many things have been produced by the gods, for arts and sciences, virtues and prayers, sacrifices and initiations, laws and polities, judgments and punishments, were invented for the purpose of preventing souls from falling into guilt. And even when they depart from the present body, expiatory gods and daimons purify them from guilt. Chapter 13. After what manner things perpetual are said to be generated. Concerning the gods, therefore, the world, and human affairs, what has been said may be sufficient for such as are not able to be led upwards through the assistance of philosophy, and yet do not possess incurable souls. It now remains that we speak concerning natures which were never generated, nor separated from one another, since we have already observed that secondary are produced from primary natures. Everything which is generated is either generated by art, or by nature, or according to power. It is necessary, therefore, that everything operating according to nature or art should be prior to the things produced, but that things operating according to power should have their productions coexistent with themselves, since they likewise possess an inseparable power, just as the sun produces light coexistent with itself, fire, heat, and snow, coldness. If, therefore, the gods produce the world by art, they would not cause it to simply be, but to be in some particular manner, for all art produces form. From whence, therefore, does the world derive its being? If from nature, since nature in fabricating imparts something of itself to its productions, and the gods are incorporeal, it is necessary that the world, the offspring of the gods, should be incorporeal. But if anyone says that the gods are corporeal, from whence does the power of incorporeals originate? And besides, if this be admitted, the world being corrupted, its artificer also must necessarily be corrupted, on the hypothesis that he operates according to nature. It remains, therefore, that the gods produced the world by power alone, but everything generated by power subsists together with the cause containing this power, and hence productions of this kind cannot be destroyed unless the producing cause is deprived of power. So that those who subject the world to corruption plainly deny that there are gods, or if they assert that there are gods, they deprive divinity of power. He therefore who produced all things through power caused all things to be coexistent with himself, and since this power is the greatest possible, not only men and animals were produced, but also gods and daimons. And as much as the first god differs from our nature, by so much is it necessary that there should be more power situated between us and him. For all natures which are much distant from each other possess a multitude of connecting mediums. Chapter 14. How the gods who are immutable are said to be angry and appeased. But if anyone thinking agreeable to reason and truth that the gods are immutable doubts how they rejoice in the good, but are averse from evil, and how they become angry with the guilty, but are rendered propitious by proper cultivation, we reply that divinity neither rejoices, for that which rejoices is also influenced by sorrow, nor is angry, for anger is a passion, nor is appeased with gifts, for then he would be influenced by delight. Nor is it lawful that a divine nature should be well or ill affected from human concerns. For the divinities are perpetually good and profitable, but are never noxious, and ever subsist in the same uniform mode of being. But we, when we are good, are conjoined with the gods through similitude, but when evil, we are separated from them through dissimilitude. And while we live according to virtue, we partake of the gods, but when we become evil, we cause them to become our enemies, not that they are angry, but because guilt prevents us from receiving the illuminations of the gods, and subjects us to the power of avenging daimons. But if we obtain pardon of our guilt through prayers and sacrifices, we neither appease nor cause any mutation to take place in the gods. But by methods of this kind, and by our conversion to a divine nature, we apply a remedy to our vices, and again become partakers of the goodness of the gods. So that it is the same thing to assert that divinity is turned from evil, as to say that the sun is concealed from those who are deprived of sight. Chapter 15. Why we honor the gods who are not indigent of anything. From hence we are presented with a solution to the doubts concerning sacrifices and other particulars relative to the cultivation of divinity. For that which is divine is not indigent of anything, but the honors which we pay to the gods are performed for the sake of our advantage. And, since the providence of the gods is everywhere extended, a certain habitude or fitness is all that is requisite in order to receive their beneficent communications. But all habitude is produced through imitation and similitude, and hence temples imitate the heavens, but altars the earth, statues resemble life, and on this account they are similar to animals, and prayers imitate that which is intellectual, but characters, superior ineffable powers, herbs and stones resemble matter, and animals which are sacrificed the irrational life of our souls. But from all these nothing happens to the gods beyond what they already possess. For what accession can be made to a divine nature, but a conjunction with our souls and the gods is by this means produced. Chapter 16. Concerning sacrifices and other honors which are of no advantage to the gods, but are useful to men. But I think it will be proper to add a few things concerning sacrifices. And in the first place, since we possess everything from the gods, and it is but just to offer the first fruits of gifts to the givers, hence of our possessions we offer the first fruits through consecrated gifts, of our bodies through ornaments, and of our life through sacrifices. Besides, without sacrifices, prayers are words only, but accompanied with sacrifices they become animated words, and words indeed corroborating life, but life animating the words. Add to that the felicity of everything is its proper perfection, but the proper perfection with its cause, and, on this account, we pray that we may be conjoined with the gods. Since, therefore, life primarily subsists in the gods, and there is also a certain human life, but the latter desires to be united with the former, a medium is required. For natures much distant from each other cannot be conjoined without a medium. And it is necessary that the medium should be similar to the connecting natures. Life, therefore, must necessarily by the medium of life. And hence, men of the present day that are happy, and all the ancients, have sacrificed animals, and this indeed not rashly, but in a manner accommodated to every god, with many other ceremonies respecting the cultivation of divinity, and thus much concerning sacrifices and the worship of the gods. Chapter 16. That the world is naturally incorruptible. That the gods will never destroy the world has already been asserted, but the order of discourse requires that we should now prove that it is naturally incorruptible. For whatever is corrupted is either corrupted from itself or from some other nature. If, therefore, the world is corrupted from itself, fire must necessarily burn itself, and water consume itself by dryness. But if the world may be corrupted by another, it must either be from body or from that which is incorporeal. But it is impossible that this can be effected from that which is incorporeal, for incorporeals, such as nature and soul, preserve corporeal substances, and nothing is destroyed by that which naturally preserves. But if the world may be corrupted by body, it must either be from the bodies which exist at present, or from others, and if from the bodies existing at present, either those which move in a circle must destroy those moving in a right line, or those moving in a right line, such as circularly revolve. But nothing moving in a circle has a corruptible nature, for why do we never see anything of this kind corrupted? And things proceeding in a right line cannot reach those revolving in an orb. For if this were possible, why have they never been able to accomplish this to the present day? But neither can the natures which are moved in a right line be destroyed by each other, for the corruption of one is the generation of the other, and this is not destruction but mutation alone. But if the world may be corrupted by other bodies than those which it contains, it is impossible to tell from whence these bodies were generated, or in what place they at present exist. Besides, whatever is corrupted is either corrupted in form or matter. But form is figure, and matter is body. And when forms are corrupted, but the matter remains, then we perceive that something else is generated. But if matter may be corrupted, how comes it to pass that it has not failed in so great a number of years? Reader's note, beginning of change in translation. If so, instead of being corrupted, it becomes something else, it will be of beings or non-beings. But if it becomes of beings, beings remain perpetually, just as their matter exists perpetually also. If, though, even beings suffer corruption, not only the world, but also everything, we would say, will be corrupted. If, though, matter exists from non-beings, in the first place it is impossible for non-beings to be something. And if it was able to be done, and it was possible for matter to exist from non-beings, as long as non-being subsists, matter would continue in existence, and non-beings can never be destroyed. End of change in translation. And if they say that matter is without form, in the first place, why does this happen not according to a part, but to the whole world? And in the next place, bodies themselves would not be destroyed, but only their beauty. Besides, whatever is corrupted is either dissolved into the natures from which it consists, or vanishes into non-entity. But if it be dissolved into natures from which it is composed, other again will be produced. For on what account was it produced at first? But if beings pass into that which is not, what should hinder this from happening to divinity itself? If power prevents, it is not the property of power to preserve itself alone, and by a similar reason, it is impossible that beings should be generated from non-beings, and that they should vanish into non-entity. Likewise, it is necessary that the world, if it may be corrupted, should either be corrupted according or contrary to nature. But if it may be corrupted according to nature, then, on account of its past and present continuance in being, it would possess that which is contrary, prior to that which is agreeable to nature. But if contrary to nature, then it is requisite that there should be some other nature which may change the nature of the world, and which is nowhere apparent. Besides, whatever is capable of being naturally corrupted, we also are able to destroy, but no one has ever destroyed or changed the entire circular body of the world, while, on the other hand, we can change, but cannot destroy, an elementary body. And lastly, whatever may be corrupted is changed and grows old by time. But through such an extended succession of ages, the world has remained without mutation. And having said thus much to those who require on this subject stronger demonstrations, we earnestly supplicate the world to be propitious to our undertaking. Chapter 18. Why sacrifices are performed, and that divinity cannot be injured. But impiety, which invades some places of the earth, and which will often subsist in the future, ought not to give any disturbance to the worthy mind, for things of this kind do not affect, nor can religious honors be of any advantage to, the gods. And the soul, from its middle nature, is not always able to pursue that which is right, nor can the whole world participate in a similar manner of the providence of the gods. But some of its parts enjoy this eternally, and others according to time. Some possess this primarily, and others in a secondary degree, just as the head perceives from all the senses, but the whole body from one alone. And on this account, as it appears to me, those who instituted festive days appointed also such as are inauspicious, during which some particulars belonging to sacred rites are omitted, and others are shut up. But such things as expiate the imbecility of our nature deprive certain particulars of their peculiar ornament. Besides, it is not improbable that impiety is a species of punishment, for those who have known and at the same time despised the gods, we may reasonably suppose will in another life be deprived of the knowledge of their nature. And those who have honored their proper sovereigns as gods shall be cut off from the divinities as the punishment of their impiety. Chapter 19. Why offenders are not immediately punished. Nor ought we to wonder why not only offenders of this kind, but likewise others, are not immediately punished for their guilt. For there are not only daimons who punish offending souls, but souls also inflict punishment on themselves. And it is not proper that such as are calculated, through the enormity of their guilt, to suffer the whole of time, should be punished in a small part of time. Besides, it is requisite that there should be such a thing as human virtue. But if the guilty were immediately punished, men, from being just through fear, would no longer be virtuous. But souls are punished on their departure from the present body, some by wandering about this part of the earth, others in certain of its hot and cold regions, and others are tormented by avenging daimons. But universally, the rational souls suffer punishment in conjunction with the irrational soul, the partner of its guilt, and through this that shadowy body derives its subsistence, which is beheld about sepulchres, and especially about the tombs of such as have lived an abandoned life. Chapter 20. Concerning the transmigration of souls, and how rational are said to be carried in irrational natures. But the transmigration of rational souls, if they take place into natures such as are rational, then they become the souls of particular bodies. If into such as are irrational, they follow externally, in the same manner as our presiding daimons attend us in their beneficent operations. For the rational part never becomes the soul of the irrational nature. But the truth of transmigration is evinced by the circumstances which take place from the birth of individuals. For why are some born blind, others imbecile, and others with a vicious soul? And besides, since souls are naturally adapted to perform their peculiar employments in bodies, it is not proper that when they have once deserted them, they should remain indolent forever. For if souls did not return again into bodies, it is necessary that either they should be infinite in number, or that others should be continually produced by the divinity. But there can be nothing actually infinite in the world, for that which is infinite can never exist in that which is finite. But neither is it possible that others can be produced, for everything in which something new may be generated is necessarily imperfect. But it is requisite that the world should be perfect, because it is produced from a perfect nature. Chapter 21. That both in this life and when they depart from it, the good will be happy. But souls that live according to virtue shall in other respects be happy, and when separated from the irrational nature and purified from all body, shall be conjoined with the gods, and govern the whole world together with the deities by whom it was produced. And indeed, though nothing of this kind should happen to the soul, yet virtue herself, and the pleasure and glory resulting from virtue, together with a life free from sorrow and subjection to others, would be sufficient to produce felicity in those who chose and are able to pursue a life wholly conformable to virtue itself.